Some things lie at the heart of all fiction, character, setting, and imagery, for instance. Where genres come in is when you start adding new elements that set that story apart from others. One of the defining elements of fantasy is magic, and one of the most prominent and ambitious writers of magical fiction in our time is Brandon Sanderson. Sanderson, the author of works like the Mistborn trilogy and the recently released Words of Radiance, spends a lot of time and effort developing magic systems, which not only expand their worlds, but will hold up under scrutiny. On his website, brandonsanderson.com, he's published a series of essays titled Sanderson's Laws, which are more like guidelines by his own admission. These essays are meant to help the reader and the writer alike understand better how to write effective and believable magic. It not only applies to magic, though. The laws can also be sort of bent to apply to science fiction. Science itself is a sort of magic, and magic, if written properly, can work like a sort of science. So if science fiction is more your thing, keep watching, because everything I'm about to say will also apply to that. So far, he's published 3 laws of magic, but right now I'm going to focus on the first one. So let's take a look. Sanderson's first law states that an author's ability to solve conflict with magic is directly proportional to how well the readers understand said magic. Sanderson created this law as a way to help him reconcile writers like himself, who create really rigid and defined laws for the magic in their worlds, with no less talented authors like Tolkien, whose fictional magic is a lot less defined, but in a way that still creates a great sense of wonder in the reader. This second idea, where both the upper and lower limits of the magic is more or less undefined, falls under the category of what Sanderson calls soft magic. Let's think back to the rule. If the readers understand little of how the magic actually works, then the author shouldn't use it much to resolve conflicts. And this makes sense. Think about the magic used in Lord of the Rings. The example that Sanderson gives is that if Gandalf simply used magic to fly the hobbits to Mount Doom, the tension of the stories would largely evaporate. So Sanderson recommends that in a soft magic system, you use magic to help set up the conflicts, but then force them to be resolved without magic. It makes sense. If it doesn't have laws and limitations holding it back, magic just might run away with the plot, and you'll end up with a deus ex machina, which is a type of plot device that simply steps in and resolves a conflict with ease. These types of devices leave readers feeling really unfulfilled. Management of tension is what you're after, and if you let your soft magic system solve conflicts for you, then the tension will ease off drastically, if it even takes hold in the first place. On the opposite side, we have hard magic. This is magic, or science, with defined laws so that it behaves in predictable ways, which the author can keep in check so that the plot doesn't run away. Sanderson mentions that a lot of world building can be done if your magic system falls into this category. And furthermore, it really begins to fill the role of a tool, something that the characters can use. And for this reason, a hard magic system allows for a lot more conflict resolution. Again, think back to the rule. If a reader understands how the magic works more, specifically what its limitations are, then the author is going to be at more liberty to resolve conflicts with magic, because what's really at work is the skill and resourcefulness of the characters as they manipulate this magic to achieve their ends. You could actually think of it that way, if I could interject my own analysis at this point. Hard magic is more the means to an end, whereas soft magic is more of an end in and of itself. Superheroes function with a sort of hard magic system, in that their powers, even if they're sometimes unexplainable, still have limitations, even weaknesses, and those powers are used as tools to help them solve conflicts. You have to consider what it is you want to do with this magic. If you want it to be more part of the setting and with unspoken limitations, then a soft magic system would be a great way to get a fantasy story rolling. If you plan on the magic or science playing an active role in the plot, if you plan on your characters wielding it actively, then you should really invest in establishing a hard magic system, where what the characters can and cannot do with it is bound and defined by laws. I personally am really interested in how this law can apply to science fiction. The book I'm working on right now has a major scientific element to it. Much of the plot is moved forwards by the genetic experimentation of one of the main characters, who's a scientist named Abram. The science he uses plays such a generative role in the plot that I really should be writing it according to a system of hard science. Not being a geneticist myself, I began my rough draft without really knowing much about the nuts and bolts of the science that my characters were interacting with. I thought that I could get the framework of the narrative down without really much scientific detail. The themes and the character development of the story were what really mattered to me, so I thought that I could get away with some scientific ambiguity. But now I realize that so much of the plot is born out of Abram's science that the story could really gain some viability and some logical strength from some research into the type of science that my characters will be using. It's used so much as a tool for Abram that leaving out the scientific foundation, particularly its limitations, could really lead to a breakdown in realism really quickly. I recommend that you check out Sanderson's website, a link in the description, and read what else that he has to say. He has 2 more laws and lots of examples which take this first law even further and expand upon these ideas of what it takes to build effective magic or science in your story. Thanks for watching. Remember to check the description for all the links to our social media, and Zach, I'll see you on Tuesday. Until then, bye.